Hey guys, I'm Jonathan with the Lion Company. This is my wife, Gina. Say hello.
Hi. Hello.
We're excited to do this video series for you guys. This is going to be maybe 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 video series, I don't know, on the life of Gideon and the coming age of the church.
Yes.
But before we get into that, because I want to get in pretty quickly, we have to do a little bit of a preface video, and that's what this video is, to explain what in the world is going on and really what the Lord started showing us. None of this was our idea, which makes me excited.
Yay.
We're just trying to be obedient and do the best that we can, so I am excited to see God move with whatever He's doing here. We were asking questions like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And just it dawned on me, we really aren't trying to accomplish anything. We're trying to be obedient to share with the Lord's people, and those who aren't yet the Lord's people, they're really all His people. What's coming, and I think that it's time to start finally talking about this stuff. So in the dateless past, at some point in my history,
Hasn't
wrapping
been that
up
long ago, actually.
maybe 30, 40 days,
Yeah.
who knows? I think that's pretty close. The Lord shared with me, He said, Jonathan, the coming age, and I don't remember the exact wording He used, whether it was age, state, movement of the church was like that of Gideon. And that was shocking because I was like, I don't know what that means.
I remember you coming home and saying, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, what do you mean, that of Gideon or the life of Gideon?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of processing through and praying, but I didn't get much. So I just kind of quit digging. I thought, well, if that was the Lord, He'll probably circle around. It happened.
Yeah.
And He gave me a series of dreams. And so while we'll be talking about the coming age of the church, we really want to treat this video series as a teaching video series. And likely because we're teaching and we're also having this unscripted teaching, we've kind of created some headers to talk about. We're going to try to get through as many of them as possible. This video will be giving you guys the dreams that the Lord gave me, as well as maybe the first part of the idea of who Gideon was. And then we'll try to wrap this video. So it started within the last chunk of my life. This sounds so much longer than it was. The last part of 21. How about
Yes.
that? The Lord He gave me this dream following up with this word about Gideon. And it was really 3 dreams in one night. And so here are the 3 dreams. The third dream, shockingly enough, has 3 levels in the last dream. So it's 3 dreams, and the third dream had 3 levels.
Right.
I started out being in a church leadership home in the dream. And in this dream, I knew that it was time to transition out. And so I'm frantic trying to transition out. And when you went in this leader's home, it was supposed to be beautiful and adorned, but it was actually trashed. There was garbage everywhere. There were torn up items that just were never cleaned up. The floors were carpeted, but you could tell that they were dirty. And I'm frantically looking for my shoes. The house, oddly enough, in its dirty state, went into a large sanctuary in like a church building. And I know that I'm there, but I know that it's time to transition to the next thing. Whatever that was, I don't know, but I know that I'm frantically looking for my shoes. And I don't want to leave my shoes there. I'm like freaking out about that in the dream. Like, I'm not leaving this place barefoot. So I take my shoes, I find them, I put them on, and I leave, and I want to show goodwill toward this church that I guess I was at. I don't really know if this represents like global church or what, because there was this transition period. And I start to clean the front yard of this church because it was all so filthy. It was covered in leaves. And I knew that I needed to hurry because the rains were coming. In the dream and dreams, it's always kind of centered around waters, rains, storms, that feeling. Rivers and oceans even, and you'll hear that in a second.
And the set of dreams that you got.
Yes, in the set of dreams that I had. I say to the leader of the home that's connected to this larger church building, huge sanctuary, I'm trying to rake his yard to show goodwill. Like, I'm not an enemy of what you're doing. I just need to do something different. And as I start to rake, the rake is flimsy and it's like falling.
That'd be frustrating.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's like meow, 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 and I get frustrated. I rake one row, and I say to him in frustration, it's no wonder people don't want to rake any longer and it's because you don't have the tools necessary to do the job properly. And he didn't have anything back to say. He knew that there was something broken, but he didn't know how to fix it. The dream changes. I get in a vehicle, and as soon as I get in the vehicle, boom, I'm in the next dream. And in the second dream, my wife and I are at a resort. And in the dream, the resort's name was called The Last Resort. So I think that's highly significant. And the resort was built on an ocean, like most resorts are, if you get ocean resorts. That's the ones I would want to go to. And it was built like a horseshoe or the letter U. It had 3 sides with rooms in it. And then there were obviously rooms on the outside that opened up to the other beach, but there were no other buildings. There were no other resorts left. So the last resort was the last resort in this dream, built on the ocean. And I knew the storms were coming. Now, the one thing that was significant in the first dream that I did leave out is that the rain started to come. And when the rains came, I thought it was going to flood the outside, but it didn't. It actually flooded the inside of the building that I was in. And when it did, all the water that poured into the home, which didn't even shock me in the dream that it somehow rained through the roof, because it did, it flooded the house about 1.5 feet of water. And the water was filthy. The water had actually stirred up all the dirt that was hidden in the carpet, and all of it came to light. And so, you would normally think, oh, well, this is probably bad rain, but the rain itself is clean, and water in general is always clean. It depends on what vessel you pour it in, whether that's a riverbed, it would carry dirt, but water in and of itself is typically clean water. It's about the quality of the vessel. And so obviously the quality of this house was in such bad repair, even though it was known to be new. All these things came up that were hidden. And so I had missed that just like by an inch, it seemed, because as soon as I left, the water was everywhere. So now back to dream 2, we are at this resort, and I know the floods are coming, the rains are coming again. This time, it's completely opposite. I'm not looking to leave, I'm looking to be hidden away with you. And so we pitch a tent in the inner court of this resort, the last resort. And when we pitch this tent, it's oversized. There's more than enough room for more people, but we're the only 2 that go into this tent. And in the dream, I want to open up these tent windows because I want to let the air blow through. And me and you start having a spiritual conversation. And when we do, all the guests of the resort realize that it was safe to be near us because the floods came to the outside of the resort. So at this resort, the safe place was inside. And in the first dream, the safe place was outside. Mm-hmm. And when we're in this tent having this spiritual conversation, all the guests of the resort gather around us and they're watching us have this conversation. As soon as we start to have this conversation, boom, dream 3 happens. In dream 3, it's like an overview of dream 1 and 2. I have been researching in dream 3 the source of the floodwaters, what's happening. And in order to do that, I have to return to where I grew up in Henderson, Kentucky. And I think that has a play on maybe the origins of where I came up in the Lord, which was very unscripted, very unplanned, very organic. And I am in an underground corridor researching why the waters are coming. And after I go down this corridor, nobody knows that I exist. And I come up out of the corridor into a house. And this house is a mansion, like beautiful home, more beautiful than I've ever seen in reality. 3 levels in this mansion. And the first level that I go into, it's already starting to flood. It was about 1.5 feet deep, just like in my first dream. So I think this third dream is kind of interpreting or giving context to the first 2 dreams. So I know that I can't stay in the first level. In Henderson, Kentucky, there is a river that lines the city called the Ohio River, and Henderson's, like their catchphrase is "on the river, never in it." So I just remember that growing up, like Henderson's always been on the river, but never in the river. And so it would be unique that river would even flood the city. But in the dream, the floodwaters had already started to come up quicker than I could stay at level 1, so I had to go to level 2. And when I went to level 2, all of these things were pointed out to me. The home, even though this home was new, had several problems with it. It had power issues, electrical, was not wired properly. They had cooked breakfast, but they had left the remains of the breakfast, whatever leftovers, on. and it was starting to smoke and it would have burned the house down. I knew that in the dream, so I had to shut off the stove and make sure that, the food wasn't just going to continue to burn. And I also noticed a door to leave the home. And I'm wondering, why am I in this home and how did I get into a 3-story mansion? How did I get here? So level 2, I'm looking for an exit point. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And I go to look at the door, and the doorknob that leads out of the house is missing. And I immediately know that they took the doorknob off of the house. Track with us. I hope that you're tracking, because I think this has a major direction shift, pivotal point in where the church is headed in a global sense. So I know that dreams can be a little weird, but track with me and I'll interpret most of this dream. So thank you for that. So the doorknob is missing off of this door, and I realize whoever was here last that owned the home probably took the doorknobs off knowing the floods were coming, but they left thinking that it would stop looters from wanting to come into the home, which made no sense to me because there was no level of protection. So I just put my finger in the mechanism and I open the door. And when I do, a lady rushes in. What are you doing in my home? I am so like, I don't know what to do. I start freaking out. And I said, look, I'm sorry. I'm researching the floods. And me and my wife actually have a ministry in Austin, Texas. Now, we're in Abilene, and I've never even thought of having a ministry in Austin, Texas. And in the dream, I thought Abilene, but I said Austin. I don't know what that means. At some point, we could minister in Austin. Maybe we'll end up having a ministry there, or multiple ministries. We're just kind of doing what the Lord says to do. So I'm not putting a claim on that. And she said, well, that's great. I'm in ministry too. I was like, okay, there's some commonality here. She's not going to call the police. I don't even know how I got here. And she said, I got to serve you. And I said, what do you mean? She said, sit down at my table and let me serve you. So I sit down, and when I do, 2 known leaders that are pretty well-known teachers in the church today, around the world probably, but definitely in the United States, they walk in. They're friends of ours, in reality and in the dream. And they say, hey, Jonathan, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? This is in Henderson, Kentucky, and I didn't know that you even had a tie here. And they walk in, they give me hugs, and they sit down at the table with me while this lady serves us food. And I tell the lady, I said, I think I know why God allowed me to be in your home. It's because all these things were messed up, and eventually you would have lost the entire home had I not showed up when I did. And she goes, I totally agree with that. So she's cooking us food, and this couple that we know, the wife says, Jonathan, I know all these bad things are coming in the floodwaters, and kind of like, because that's what we're facing today. All these bad things are happening, but I just feel like it's the hand of God. And when she said that, it was like, and it was fear and awe. It was like, this is God, and we are sensing his presence, and we're getting wrecked at this table while we're eating food from this strange lady, and we know it's the Lord immediately. And then terror hit me, because I knew that if this was the Lord, I look back at level 2, what was no water that became a river is now an ocean. And now I realize this is God, which means he's going to see this through. And we're in a home that's being flooded, and I realize we have got to get out. So after having this moment with Jesus, I say to the lady that owns the home, we have to escape through level 3. If we don't go to level 3, we will not survive level 2. And she goes, well, I know my home, like we can get out of level 2 still. The waters are full and it's starting to cover our waist, and we're like, we have to get out. And I said, look, I appreciate that you know this territory, but I also know I've been researching the flood for a long time, and if we don't go to level 3, we're going to die. And she goes, I'm going to take your word for it. Let's go to level 3. We go up to level 3, and when we do, we kind of get an overview of the home. It's gorgeous because we can see from like the top level into this big, amazing living room entry area. I mean, it was a mansion, but it was more than I've ever seen. And when this happens and we hit level 3, a tidal wave comes and it slaps the top of the house. Now the water is no longer dirty, it's blue, which is equally terrifying because the uncontrollability of the ocean, it does what it wants.
Right.
And you can't really control what happens with the ocean when it decides to do that. So it slaps the top of the house, and I look up and it turns the ceiling, drywall, all the way through to the wood, to the shingles, it turns it all translucent. And I see the blue ocean slapping over top of the house, and I'm like, yeah, we got to get out now. we run out of the front of the house, or at the top, and we come down through the levels outside of the building, because the house was kind of built in 3 levels into a hill, which I think is equally significant. We come down and we see guys coming up like painters, and they're doing last touches on the house. And I'm thinking, what are you doing here? This flood is going to destroy everything. You're spending too much time on the facade. You need to work on running for your life. And I turn around and this home is beautiful. It's shocking. It's so beautiful. But what's more shocking is that there was no flood. There was no river. So obviously there's no ocean. And I wake up. And when I wake up, I'm like freaked out. Some of the language used in this series of dreams was the floods have come to basically change the geography, the plane on which we inhabit, and it was changing the whole world. And so in the dream, I knew that this was bigger than the flood waters themselves. So that's why I was so shocked to see that the floods were coming inside the home and not outside the home. So the first dream and the third dream, the waters are in the home. The second dream, waters are outside of the home, or outside of the resort. It's the last resort. I wake up and I know this is immediately God. I write down the dreams, freaking out a little bit because I know this is one of those big dreams like God has given me before events take place. And I'm like, God, what is happening here? I still don't get what you're trying to communicate. And the next night I have another dream. And in this dream, the floodwaters have already come and it's changed the landscape. And now there's another resort. And I've just been hired at it. And this resort isn't called the last resort. It has like some beautiful name that I don't remember. Sorry. It's a little anticlimactic. While I'm working there, there was a leader that I guess ran this resort. And he said, yeah, now that we have kind of a moat, like a river moat around this, it was pretty. It wasn't gross. When I hear the word moat, I think muddy, gross water. This was pretty. He said, I'm going to take you on this boat on the moat, and all these rhyming words, and go around and kind of have a staff meeting on it. And for some odd reason, I was rising to a place of authority much faster than all the other employees. I was brand new, but I had immediately been entrusted with what was going to happen at this resort in the next season. They're like, okay, take it. And so we go to get on the boat and leave. And when we do, the leader that was taking us on this tour didn't commit to put both feet on the boat. And because he didn't, he had his foot crushed between the boat and the land. And so he couldn't ride on the boat any longer, which bothered me. We go around, I have this encounter, the waters start to get troubled. I command the waters to be still. I'm frustrated that the waters would even challenge us. And then I have an opportunity to pray for somebody at the end of this dream, and they're about to have a major breakthrough. And I wake up frustrated that the waters tried to trouble us again. Right. In the same way that Jesus said, peace be still, I said that in the dream and it happened, and everybody kind of freaked out and they were looking to me like I had did something. But in the dream, I'm thinking, you guys have got this whole vantage point wrong. It's not about me. The water was trying to disturb this next path that we're on. And so I wake up. And with all that being said, I want to kind of break down now what some of this means. We have processed since the Lord gave us, this, whatever it is, dreams, language about what's coming to the church and to the world. And I think that we started to kind of look at all of the climate that we're currently in. You had mentioned, obviously COVID being a thing. We had talked about political agendas are at an all-time high, narratives to point people toward negativity consistently. And there's so much going on that if we camped out at that, we would be depressed, you would be depressed, and we'd be like, we don't want to do videos anymore because we don't like to live on the problem. We want to focus on the solution. So when we came to that, and then we really felt like, let's as a family, me and Prophet, we're going to sit and read the story of Gideon. I probably should have did that when God said the next stage of the church, the move is like that of Gideon. So we start to read on the life of Gideon, and suddenly this dream, which you may want to go back and reference for the next few videos, it all has like, I don't even really know how to say it. Once we start to explain what God is wanting to do with the church, it was like astounding. Yeah. So I hope that you guys stay with us for the ride. Gideon was kind of like, without going into too much details, because the next videos will really break this down. He's kind of the last of his family. right in a time when judgment has hit Israel because they've rebelled against the Lord, and they're pretty much starving. And right in the middle of all of this, you have a guy that is separating wheat from chaff. And when he's doing it, he's not doing it at a threshing floor, which is normally where you would separate wheat. Mm-hmm. He's doing it inside of a wine press. And so the first thing that stuck out, I mean, the whole story ends up sticking out.
Yes.
But the first thing that stuck out was like a prophetic insight. In the scripture, it says that he's doing this because he has to hide all of their food so that that doesn't get taken or consumed. We'll break that down in future videos. But the first thing that happens, a man is separating what is fruitful from what is wasteful in a wine press, the place of wine or the place of intimacy, hidden from the world. Sounds very much like Dream 2. And we'll break down what these dreams mean over the next few videos as well. We'll hit on that. And I just want you to take that as a picture for the rest of this video series. A man is separating what is useful from what is wasteful in a hidden place. And then an angel comes and says, "Oh, mighty warrior, oh, valiant man," depending on the translation you read. And we've read them all at this point. Yeah. We're like, what? And this casts the theme for the rest of Gideon's life. And when most of us look back at Gideon, we read through this negative lens. And we want to break down what that means in future videos. So stay with us for future videos. Hopefully this has been short enough that you've been able to digest it quickly. We love you guys. We will see you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.